Hello, Barb.
Hey there, how you doing, Brad?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm all right. I was just creating a poll, so for fun here.
Oh, cool.
So asking people which books are they interested in that you were using, and I didn't quite get the entire list of 20, but
It's a start.
go ahead and answer that. I'll go ahead and make you a co-host. So we have one question so far in the chat window. I often see in the grade window for a particular exercise that responses for first, second, third, fourth, it'll show the same answer 4 times.
My guess is that that's just a student who's repeatedly pressing the check me button.
Yep, probably. We see that a lot with the short answer questions, that people just keep hitting the same thing over and over again. At least one of the students, the top student, wouldn't have done that, but it's many students. Well, we can check to see if there's any error with it. Can we see the picture? I can click to download it and then look at it. There it is.
I can see it.
Yep, not every student. So
yeah, you might be right, but I don't know why Avani in particular and some other students, why would they keep clicking the button? And I see it often, and it's just confusing to me. I'm not sure.
Would it happen?
Maybe I need to tell my students or something to.
Well, I wonder if they're reloading the page. Would it show up just as if it reloads from local storage?
Nope, they have to click the check me button in order to have it count as a response.
That is a lot. I just picked one problem just randomly just now from this past semester. It does seem like several students with that over and over again. I just can't imagine why you would click it, be told it was right or wrong, and then just click it again with the same answer, click it again with the same answer, click it again with the same answer. So I guess it would be better if I had talked to the student and asked them if they had clicked it, and then it'd be a better question, better form of question. But
yeah, I haven't seen it that often. So
it might be that they're studying by retesting themselves, which is a good thing to do.
Do you use the practice feature?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll cover that today.
Oh, where it's not graded, it's just they go in and.
Well, there's a feature that uses spaced repetition to present the students with a set of questions each day, looking back 2 weeks.
Oh, I see.
So.
Yeah, no, I don't use that, so that wouldn't have explained.
Nope.
I'm curious.
But it could be. Do you have a lab maybe where there's no, where the browser cache might get
no
erased automatically?
It's
or are they
one-to-one. Everybody's using their own laptops.
Huh.
And I've been using this for a few years. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids out of about 15. Like, it's a third of the kids. And I guess, yeah, again, it would have been better if I stopped during the school year at some point and said, hey, I noticed you answered this 4 times. Do you remember doing that? And if the girl said, no, I just clicked it once, then I'd have better data.
Yep.
But it seems odd to me. And I've noticed it for a few years. And it always makes me think, I don't know what I'm looking at now, because a bunch of kids just put in their letter and a bunch of kids seem to, for some reason, click the same answer over and over and over again. Yeah. And I can't imagine a kid sitting there, click, click.
Oh, you would be surprised.
One of the students who actually ended up being a great contributor, he was a summer research student of mine that helped write code for Runestone, was famous for answering one question 147 times when he was a freshman. So.
All right.
When I looked at the Parsons problems,
he just thought it would be funny.
Yeah. When I look at the Parsons problems blogs, it is amazing how many times they will attempt to answer something. I thought they'd give up after like 10. Yeah, no, it's like 100.
No, but I don't mind the attempts. It's just they're just doing the same thing over and over again. So that always struck me as an error of some kind.
Oh no, they do that
like
with
a multiple choice, and a multiple choice test, a third of the kids wouldn't be clicking repeatedly on an answer they already know is wrong.
Right.
But
Well, we'll have to see if we can find a way to reproduce that in any way, or
yeah, I
'cause
can.
I honestly haven't seen that happen that much.
Yeah,
But
that was just me picking a random question too. I didn't try several to find one like this. I said, "Oh, I should go and find one."
yeah,
Go, and I went to this one, and there it was. But anyway, so I hear you. I'll if it during the fall I find it again, I'll try to investigate more, and I could let you know what the
Yeah.
kids said about whether they did
Yeah,
it.
if they're logged in and they reload the page, it would show them their answers still.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know
Yeah.
why they would then change it. You know, I was thinking if they reloaded, maybe they were like, oh, I forgot to answer that one, somehow reloaded. But if they were logged in, it would save their answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yep.
and I
Well,
assume
we
that they
could
have done
go
this
back
more
and try to
times.
look at that actually. So another question, are there logs to show when individual answers were submitted?
Oh,
Yes, we could, you could download the log for that
Oh.
course
that's a good point.
as a CSV file, and you could actually check for that student and see
I will do that later, and
what
then
exactly they did.
if it
Yeah,
solves the mystery, then I'll let you know or whatever.
right.
Oh, good idea. Thanks.
Thank you for that question/solution.
There's
All right.
also a question about, remind me to ask a question about the timed assignments from today's video from Sean Joyce.
All right.
Do you want to ask it now before we get
Oh,
started?
yeah, I just posted it in the chat. Brad, did I see a pause button? And does that stop the student's countdown timer?
It stops the countdown timer and hides the questions.
Yeah, the idea is if they're taking a timed exam and like they have to go to the bathroom or something, they can hit the pause button. They can't see the question anymore, but they can go to the bathroom or something and come back and then restart.
So it hides the question. Okay.
It hides the question. Our video is not auto-graded. On our assignments, it shows progress as 0 out of 3. And Laura says they could snapshot the screen before they hit pause. Totally. You know, and we could make that an option to allow the pause or not. I was more thinking about it for the APCSA practice. You know, if like, for example, some of the schools I've been at, all of a sudden an announcement will come on and the kids can't hear anything and do anything. They're supposed to pay attention to the announcement. So that's why I put the pause button in there so they could pause the timer, wouldn't hurt them if their teacher needed to interrupt them for a moment.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing we've all learned from the AP exams this spring, it's that no online exam system is foolproof or perfect.
All right, should we get started? I'll stop the
Sure.
poll.
All right. I will go ahead and share my screen.
So most of our people are interested in CS Awesome, 62%. Some Python, computer scientists, 32, foundations of Python programming. Those are the top ones right now.
Very good. All right, so the goal here today is to kind of, again, walk through some things that were covered in the video. I know a lot of people have been watching those videos, and also a fair number have not. So we're just gonna kind of go step by step through the process of creating a couple of different assignments, seeing how students see those assignments, grading the assignments, and just like yesterday, again, feel free to jump in at any time with any kind of questions that you may have about them. So I'm logged into the to our course, and so I'm just going to go to the instructors page. If you made a course, feel free to go go to your own course, and you can kind of follow along and be doing this in your own course as we go on. So I'm going to go to the assignments page, and as I said in the video, there's a number of different kinds of ways that you can use Runestone, a number of different kinds of assignments. on this page, we really are highlighting two different kinds of assignments that you can create. So we've got these reading assignments and we've got problem set assignments. And so the difference between those is that the reading assignments are meant to be formative and meant to give students some points for interacting with the textbook and actually doing the reading, you know, with the idea that you bribe them with points and they come to class better prepared. So that's what the reading assignments are for. The activities that they interact with on the page aren't graded for correctness. They're just graded for interaction. So, you know, the student gets a little check mark for interacting with a video or interacting with a multiple choice question. And, you know, some things have right or wrong answers, like multiple choice questions and so on, but a number of our other things don't have right or wrong answers. They're just there to help students develop a mental model for how Python works, or to help visualize an algorithm or whatnot. So that's kind of the idea behind a reading assignment. And then the problem set assignments are things that you would, you know, grade summatively, that they would be there for assessing, you know, how they're doing, whether they're really understanding the materials and so forth. So we'll create one of each kind of those assignments and see how that looks to a student. On this page, you can see all of your various assignments from this drop down, and so we'll create a new one here, and we'll call this our demo reading assignment. Click on the create button. So this is a common question that comes up as a bug report on on GitHub very often, or as an email that finds its way to me, is I made this assignment, but the students can't see it. And so there is this visible to students checkbox here. And if you don't check the box, the students don't see the assignment. And the default is unchecked simply because I know many people are like me, where you might get halfway through creating an assignment, you're not done yet, and then you got to run to class, or you get interrupted and you got to go do other things, and you don't get back to finishing the assignment for a long time. And you know, there's one thing that we all know, it's that if you have a partial assignment visible and a student looks at it and only sees 2 problems and completes those 2, they think they're done. And
we have a suggestion to make your screen bigger so people can read it better. Thank you.
there we go. Sorry about that. So there's visible to students. We'll come back to this stuff on time limits and timed assessments in a little bit. So the description is just some free text that will appear on the assignments page, so that it'll give the student and maybe some ideas on what the assignment is about. Okay, by default, the due date is just set a week from when you create it. If you wanna modify it, you can modify your due date and your due time here. And that is, again, that you're setting that in your local time, and then it gets remembered on the server in universal time. And you'll notice that you can jump from month to month much more nicely with this date picker. And PS, I fixed the date picker for the create a course last night. So now you can see the little arrows on that date picker as well. So the idea here with the readings is that you would just go to the chapter that you're going to cover and choose. If you click on the whole chapter, it will select all of the subsections, and it will add all of those pages in the chapter in order. You can drag and drop and reorder things if you want. So there's that. You will also notice that in this kind of picker for the reading assignments, we do not include the exercises chapter. So for reasons that we'll review in a little bit. So you can select or deselect any of these. So if you don't want them to, do the chapter assessment, and maybe you don't want to do the accumulator pattern, right? You can uncheck that and it will pop out of the table. Okay, so that now that we have our pages that we want the students to read, you'll see in here there's this number required. And so for reading assignments, what we do is we set the default, to 80%, kind of rounding up to the next whole number. So there are 3 activities and the student is required to do 2 of them, or there are 6 activities, the student is required to do 4 of them, right? And you can change that. If you want them to do all 6, you can just put a 6 in there, click the check box, and now they have to do all 6, right? The philosophy was, hey, this is formative. If they miss one on the page, we don't want them to get penalized and not get the points, because it's an all or nothing system for points on the reading assignments. So if they don't do all 6, they won't get the point. They won't get 5/6 of a point. They just won't get any points for that page. And these are also configurable. Our friend Paul likes to give a lot of points in his class. So sometimes his reading assignments can be worth several hundred points. But other things are worth thousands of points. So it's all relative, right? So you can customize any of that for each question. All right. So these are auto graded. So, it doesn't really take any of your time once you've got the assignment created. And we call the grading type for this, just for lack of a better name, we call it an interaction. So that just means if the student has interacted, they'll get the points. All right. So you'll see that it updates the points up here, and we'll save our assignment. Questions about anything that I've covered so far? All right, let's go back to our course. Let's go to our assignments page. And you'll see here we've got our demo reading assignment. So if I click on that, you'll see that now it has all of those pages listed. And if I click into one of those pages, all right, it'll bring me to the page. All right, and now as I interact with things, it'll start to give points. So someone said this wasn't working. So let's see. So as long as I start it, it doesn't look like it did increment. So it should, maybe I'll have to double check my videos. They were working before. Let's try something else. Let's try saving and running this active code example. So now that updated. So we can see 2 of 6 activities on the page. Right, so this is just a thing that we added to help students so that they would have a better idea of why they were or weren't getting points for these reading assignments. So they would claim they were doing everything or whatever. But now this gives them a very clear indication of the things that they've done on the page. All right. And if they get everything done on the page, then it actually turns this mark as completed thing to green and shows everything as completed. Okay, so you can navigate to the next page, right, just by using these navigation buttons here. Or with a reading assignment, we have this handy link. So if you want your students to read things in a particular order and you've reordered the sections in your reading assignment for some reason, then this will always show your student what the next page in the reading assignment is based on the order that you set. So all they have to do is go click on that and it'll bring them to the next page in their reading assignment. So while I'm on this, I also have some notes about a couple of other miscellaneous things so that I wanted to point out that is good for you to point out to your students and remind your students about sometimes. So there's a couple of things here. So the textbook is searchable and students don't often discover that, but once they discover it, it's a very useful feature for them. So if they're, if they're looking for a particular topic, the search page will show them where they can find that. The other thing is there is an index for each book, and so they can also make use of that index. And then if the students are just looking for a place to take some notes for themselves, or if they just want to try out some code, so we have these Scratch active code windows, right? So print hello world, right? And so they could put any, each book has its own default language for how these Scratch active code works, Scratch active codes work. But what I discovered in making a bunch of classroom visits over the last couple of years in my work with Google was that a lot of students were actually just using this Scratch active code as just a note-taking thing. So they can put any text in here that they want. And of course it'll give them an error, but the same history slider is there for them. And so this Scratch active code just sort of follows the student around the book. And they can always go back to whatever page they were last on, whatever they were last doing. And so it does turn out to be kind of a nice, just little note-taking feature that you can add to the textbook.
Brad, can you show them again how you brought that up?
Yep. So you bring that up just by clicking on the pencil icon. And then you can just click the X to dismiss it whenever you want.
So we do have one question from a teacher, from Diana, that's saying, why do we have this mark as completed as being clickable? Students thought they could check that without doing the activities and still get the points, but they didn't.
No, they didn't, because we're smarter than that.
Because they want to know why we have that check mark then. They have the ability to check that.
So the mark as completed box actually predates all the reading assignment stuff. And it was just as a way really for students to mark something as completed so that in the table of contents for the book, they would see the green check mark for that chapter. It was a way for students to be able to mark for themselves, okay, these are the things that I have read, and to be able to get that visual indicator as part of the table of contents.
Yeah, that actually came out of one of our early studies with teachers that found that they got confused when they came back to the book on what did they completed and what hadn't they. So we added that so the teachers would have a way of knowing what they'd already completed.
The thing is that students would come to me and tell me, oh, look, I did it. You have to give me the points. And it was that they marked as completed. But anyway, so it doesn't affect the points. But
it doesn't affect the points.
Nope. All right, so let's go back to the instructors page.
Oh, there's one other question from Sean. Is the active code Scratch window for each page, or is it for the whole book?
Yeah, so it is now for the whole book. So I think when Sean and others first started to use this, we had the active codes tied to each page. But what we found was the students were really trying to use it as more of a global scratch pad, and so they found it very frustrating that they knew they had written some code in this active code scratch window, but then they had to remember what page they were on when they wrote the code in order to get back to it. So we made the decision to just make it a global scratch pad that followed them around the whole book, no matter what page they were on. And that fit in better with the student's mental model of how it was supposed to work.
Here's a question about the readings. How do you reorganize the readings? That was just you changing the subchapters in the assignments, right?
Partly, and we can also, if we go back to this in the readings here, you'll see that if we want them to read the glossary first, we can just pick that up, drag it up to the top. And so we could change the order of how we have them read things by dragging and dropping in this little table view. So let's check that. Let's go to the assignments page. Let's look at this. And yep, so now you can see the glossary is the first thing in the reading assignment. And if we go to page 2 of 11 in the reading assignment here, you'll see it brings us to 8.1. So it follows that order. Okay, so let's now make let's make another one. So we'll do a demo problem set. Create that. We'll mark it as visible so that I don't forget. All right, and then for here we go down to the problems section. All right, so again, these are things that you want to grade your students on. So most of the time you're going to want to get your problems for this out of the exercises page. And you can see quite a few there. So one thing to demo would be if you just check the entire box, it'll say, yeah, you're about to add 29 exercises without looking at them. Do you really want to do that? And so I don't want to do that. I want to be more choosy about that. So we'll open up this exercises, and just to demonstrate or talk about kind of the legend here. So we keep adding more and more little icons onto this selector. So if you see this little blue book here, that means that these were exercises that were originally written and provided as exercise by the author of the textbook. So in this case, it was stuff that we wrote. If you see the little schoolhouse here, that's an indicator that this is a question that was contributed by another instructor. All right, so part of the goal of Runestone is to try to, for each of our chapters to be building up a question bank that we can all share of different questions and problems for our students to do. So that shows you that came from another instructor. And then the questions that have the check mark on them are questions where they're auto-gradable, right? So one of our big goals is to try to recruit people to help us write more unit tests so that we can be automatically grading these active code questions. All right, and of course you say, oh, I don't know what this question is, AC381. All you have to do is tap on it, and it'll show you the problem. And again, we talked about this flag for review yesterday, and we'll talk about this edit question thing after we get done with grading. But this would be a way for you, if you see a question that you like, but you want to tweak it and make it your own, you can actually edit the question and add a tweaked version of this question to the bank. Okay, so let's just add We'll add this multiple choice. Well, let's see what it is first. Oh, that's not a good one to add. So this would be a good one to review because it's didn't compile properly. So we don't want to use that one. Is there another one? So we can add H1, Q10. We could add that one. And let's just add a couple other active codes. And maybe you wanted to go back and just add a couple of Parsons problems. So we could add a couple of Parsons problems. These are coming out of the text, but they will, they will appear for the student to be a part of a graded exercise. So this would be a case where they wouldn't just mess around with them, they would actually get credit for getting the Parsons problems right. Okay, so every time you check on one down below, you close the preview, it gets added to the table here. Again, if you want to control the order of these, maybe you'd rather have them do the Parsons problems before they do the coding exercises, you can drag and drop them to reorder. You can assign as many points as you want to each one. We'll make them all worth 10. All right. So under the auto grading options now, for the things that are automatically gradable, you'll have some options. So this could be, we could grade this on the percentage correct. We could grade this as all or nothing. Or we could go back and say, no, we just want, we're going to grade this automatically based on just a student trying. So we'll just leave that at % correct there. And then you could also say, which do you want to grade? So we have some options here as well. We could grade them on their first answer, their last answer, or their best answer. So best answer is the default because we do know that a lot of times students, even once they've gotten the correct answer, will often go back once they've found the correct answer. They will, especially on multiple choice and other things where they get feedback on the wrong answers, they'll click on the wrong answers just to see what sort of feedback is given and why a particular answer is wrong. So best answer, so that may have been, the point is that may have been their last answer, was they were just messing around. They knew they had gotten the answer correct, but they checked on a wrong answer and then moved on, not thinking about making sure they had the correct answer checked. So checking their best answer. So any of those are valid grading options. Okay. So we'll save that. Now we can go to our assignments page, and here's our problem set assignment. So you'll see here, it actually does present the student with their, with the problems. So you can sort of create a worksheet for them to be working on, if you will, or a little problem set that where everything is kind of gathered in one nice spot for them. They don't have to go hunting around the book to try to find the questions. If they want to see a particular question in its context, there is this link here so that the student can click on the question in context. It'll bring them to the page. Here's the same question. And it doesn't matter where the student does the problem. If they can do it on the assignment page, they can do it here in line in the text. It gets recorded just the same, right? So that's one reason why we use these unique identifiers for every problem. So it's the same problem whether it's presented in one place or another place. All right, so if a student does some things here, So we'll just try this. We'll check it. Nope, it's too short. Let's see. Import turtle. What are we supposed to do here? We're supposed to.
Brad, I wouldn't spend time on this.
Yeah.
We're
I'm just trying to get something right so that I can show the self grade. But
sure.
if that looks like it'll take too long, then so be it. All right. So on this assignment page, the student can actually go click here on this Score Me button, right? And that will run the automatic grader on things and then show them the score that they are getting, right? And this says not yet graded, not yet graded. That's because these have to be manually graded. There is no unit tests designed for this. So again, this was designed to help the students understand, okay, what have I done? What have I completed for this assignment? How am I doing? The one caveat for this is the Score Me doesn't take into account the deadline, right? So if a student comes and does their whole assignment after the deadline and clicks Score Me, it could show that for auto-graded things, they're getting full marks. But when you do the grading, they won't get full credit because they didn't do the work by the deadline. Okay. So let's go back to the instructors page and look at one more thing now before we move on to grading. And so under our assignments, right? So we could take one of these assignments here. Here's a short problem set. So that just had a couple of things in it. Right, and now we could click this button here to say, show this as a timed assessment. We can set a time limit of 10 minutes. All right, and now if we go back to our assignment page and look at this assignment, this short problem set, you'll see now it takes the form of a quiz. Right, so they don't see the questions. They have to click on the start button. In order to see the questions, they can navigate through, right? And once they've seen all the questions, then they'll get this finish exam button here. And when they finish the exam, when they click that button, it'll say, yep, it means you're ready to submit your answers and are finished with this assessment. So there you got to click OK again, and then it shows the score. So that's how you can create a quiz, is by just basically making an assignment and then turning it into a timed assessment. And you can always just undo that as well by coming back to the problem set, unchecking that box, and now it goes back to just being a regular old timed or regular old assignment. And so the student would see everything. So those are the two ways. So questions before we move on to grading?
I'd go ahead to grading. I've been answering them in the chat window for the most part as we go.
Okay. Okay, so here we are on the grading page. So that your first decision here is, do you want to select a chapter or assignment? So we're going to do an assignment first. So I'll select assignment here. We can select assignments. We'll select the short problem set. All right, so once we've selected the assignment, you'll see a couple things. So first of all, you'll see in bright red here, it says grades not released. All right, so again, this is one of those things that the students won't see the grade on one of these assignments until you click the release grade button here to release the grades, right? And again, that's just because in many assignments, you'll have a combination of things that could be automatically graded and a couple of things that you have to manually grade. And so we don't want the students to get all worked up if they go look at their grade book and see, oh, I only got so many points on this assignment and I know I did everything right. So you can wait for them to see that until you've got everything graded. Down here, you'll see that it shows you a little summary, the minimum score and the maximum score, the average score, and then how many we've graded. So I guess I already clicked here. So if we want to auto grade, we want to just auto grade everything that can be auto graded that's a part of an assignment. All we have to do is click auto grade and display totals. And you'll see this will show you a little progress indicator. It goes a student at a time and shows you the progress for each student. And this does take a bit, especially for this where we've got 240 some people registered for the course. So I'll continue talking while that's continuing to auto grade.
One thing you might want to show Brad is the ability to download the gradebook.
Yep. When I display the gradebook, I will show that. So here also there's this checkbox. So do you want to only check the work submitted before, and that shows you the, shows you the deadline, right? So there we go. So now you can see it updated the count from whatever it was before to 252. And the average seems to have gone down a bit on some of those. So I'm not sure why my scroll thing, am I just not, there we go. I'm not doing it right. No. The browser is being stupid about scrolling. So this should show you, in theory, every student. And if you see a student that you're wondering about, you could click on the student's name here, which I will just pick someone at random. And it will bring you there. It will show you the student score out of the possible points for that. And if you want to go get the details on the question, this would be that familiar thing that shows you the actual question. All right. So that's how you auto grade everything. If you just wanted to auto grade one student, you could select one student here and go ahead and click the auto grade button, and that's just going to do that one student. If you just wanted to select one question, you could select one question and click on auto grade, and then that will go through and it will grade every student on that one question. Right? What doesn't work is if you want to select a couple of things here and a few students here. So that would give you a warning that that's not, I think that would give you a warning. Yep, it will say it doesn't work with multiple selections. So that's a thing that's still on my to-do list, but just to be clear about how that works. Okay, so by the same token, that does work perfectly, and what a lot of people will do is, we'll reset this. A lot of times what instructors may do is they will select a single question, and then they'll select all the students. And then you'll see it'll pop up over here on the right for that one question, all the students. You could go through, if you wanted to adjust anybody's grade or make a different comment. Hello, nice job. You'll notice that as you can just tab from student to student, from field to field, and as you tab, this will turn green to let you know that it's been updated in the database. So this is really, with a lot of good feedback from instructors to how to try to streamline this to make it as efficient for you as possible. You know, if you do need to go through and, you know, automatically grade an active code problem or something like that. Okay, so let's.
Brad, can we show them creating some content?
What do you mean, Barb?
Oh, creating for an assignment, creating some new content, like a new multiple choice question.
Yep, it's on my list. It's coming up.
Okay.
So, yes, so we can release the grades. And
Brad, do we have one question about a late penalty? Do we have any provision for a 10% penalty for late day or similar?
I have not added that in. No, there is at this point, there is not any provision for that. So it actually hasn't been requested very much at all. But
do you know if it's in the grade book so that they can hand adjust the date that was submitted?
So the grade book, does the grade book show the date that it was submitted? No, the grade book doesn't show the date that something was submitted. It just shows the score. That would be something that you could see from that chapter overview report. So here we have our grade book. If you want to see a particular problem, so you can just filter that down to one assignment so that you can see the grade book for that whole assignment. If you wanted to filter it down to a particular student, it'll filter it that way as well. And somebody yesterday asked, can you sort the gradebook by last name? And yes, the answer is yes. You can sort it any way you want. You can sort it by first name, last name, username, and you can use these filters. And if you download it, it'll be downloaded as a CSV file. So that's the gradebook.
We had a question, can the teacher override a score in the gradebook?
Yes. Good question. So if we go back to the grading interface here, bring up one of these problem sets. So you can always go back and you can, for a particular student or for a particular problem, for a particular student, you can always go back and you can override the grade here. One thing that I'll note is if you leave the auto-graded comment, if you assign them a manual grade and leave auto-graded, it will re-auto-grade that again. So if you are manually adjusting something, you should eliminate that auto-graded comment. And then you can just click Save Grade. And that will let you override the grade for a single element. And if you want to do a manual override for their entire assignment, you can come here and you can manually override the total for the whole assignment as well. So there's a couple of ways you can do that.
Oh, there was a comment about where do students see the comments that you write, that if you're hand marking something and you write in the comments, where do they see that?
They will see that back on the assignments page. So if they go back to that assignments page and look at that problem, they will see their score and they will see any comments that you leave for them. Okay. So let's look at this problem set here. So suppose we wanted to add, if we wanted to add our own custom question. So we could do that in a couple different ways. One way to do that is that we would simply click on this write button here, and that will change us into the mode of where we're going to get a choice of questions. All right. And let's say that we just wanted to do let's say we wanted to add a short answer question to this. That's a nice straightforward one. All right. So in this text box down below it, you'll see that it fills in kind of a template for you and gives you a little extra documentation with configuration information. So the idea behind all of these various questions, and Barb demoed a lot of these to you on the first day in that overview page, where you can go look at the overview page. You can see examples of all the different problem sets. You can click on the show source and it will show you the source for those questions.
Yeah, Brad means the overview book.
The overview book.
Yeah, change course to the overview book.
What did I say?
Overview page.
Ah, I think of it as a page, but it is a book. So every question has to have a unique ID. I don't know, I recommend that if you're going to start doing this, you might want to just either prefix the unique ID by your institution or by your initials, or some easy convention for you to remember. So this isn't going to be optional. And then, so write a short essay on the meaning of life. And so that's kind of a very minimal amount of markup. So the only thing to really keep in mind with this is that, like Python, white space is significant. And so the things that you do for this short answer directive need to be indented, at least even with the beginning of this short answer word up here. So once you've got that, we'll pick a chapter that we want that to live in. So all questions must have a home in a chapter. They're automatically would be added to the exercises page unless you mark the question as private, in which case then it will not show up on the exercises page. It will just be there as a question that you have added, so that you could potentially add it to an assignment that your students would see, or you could add it to a quiz that your timed assessment that your students would see. Okay, and then you click generate and view HTML, and it'll go out and run it through the Runestone compiler to generate the actual question, and then give you a preview of the question so that you know you've got it the way you want it. Okay. Yeah, one nice, yeah. Once you've previewed it and you know that you have it right, then all you got to do is click save and add, and it'll add that to the database, and it'll add that question to your current assignment. So that's how you can write any sort of question. So for some reason, I don't have the video. Somebody was asking about videos in the chat yesterday, and could you add your own custom videos to your course? And so my answer to that is that this would be the way to do that. And so you'll notice that you'll remember that in the assignment page for this course, you actually do have some videos, right? So you can pick anything you want here, but the bottom line is you can write anything that you want into this text page, and this is only meant to be helpful. So I have if I want to include a YouTube video in an assignment, all I have to do is say ... space YouTube, and then this is the identifier that you would use is the code that YouTube gives you when you ask for the sharing link, right? Minus the u.tube part of the URL. That we don't need. and then you can control the height and the width and the alignment of it. And that would be a way that you could then add a YouTube video to part of an assignment. And it's on my to-do list to add that to this drop-down list. So
there was one question about, can private questions, how do you find them then if they're not associated with the chapter when you want to use them again?
So they will show up for you and you alone. If we go back to browsing questions, private questions would show up for you. So if you go to the exercises page and you know that you've written some questions but marked them private, they will show up in the list for that
chapter.
For that chapter. Yep.
You can also use the search feature if you remember the name of it.
Right. You could also search, and you could just search for the term. If I search for BNM _ and click search, this should pop up with the.
There's also a question about the SQL auto-graded. Can those be, the SQL active codes, can those be auto-graded?
Yes. Yep, the SQL questions can be auto-graded. So it's just done very simply with an assert. So I'll write one. How about that? So active code, SQL test. Right. So for doing SQL, we have to add the :language : SQL. So that tells us that we're using SQL. And then we write our question here. So write a query. And then we put 4 squigglies, 4 tildes. So that separates our question from any scaffolding code. So scaffolded SQL goes here. And then 4 equal signs, and then the unit test go here. And so the syntax for the SQL unit test is pretty simple. I made it up myself. So all you say is assert, and then you give it a row. So let's say row 0, column 3 equals some value. So, and you can use equals, you can use greater than, less than, you can do kind of the standard comparison operators. So that's just going to look at the result set from that query, look at row 0, look at column 3, and compare that to the value that they got in their query. So it's fairly primitive, but I don't know, it seems to work pretty well as well. So. Okay. Time flies. So yeah, so let me just any questions on writing questions?
Let's see.
It's definitely a growing trend. I've noticed that, you know, maybe the first time you use Runestone, you don't write very many questions, but then the second time through, people seem to get more comfortable. And
can you show them quick the overview book again, how to get to the overview book so they can see source for the different types?
Yep, so you're gonna click on this change course button right there. That'll bring you to your list of courses. And here's overview in my list. If you haven't added overview to your list of courses, you can click on enroll in a course and just type in overview in the course name here. All right, and so then if we just we click on overview, it'll take us to the overview book. Do I not have an example of, I should have an example of how the unit tests are written for this.
Yeah, there is an example.
Yep, I do. All right, cool. All right, so very quickly, let's go back to this book. So just a couple of quick things that I wanted to point out that are unique to being an instructor. Oops, that's not a good page to pick. All right, so there's this, if you're the instructor for a course, there's this view button. And so if you change that to code presenter, that puts you in a mode where it's gonna kind of put you in a presentation mode. Oh, I needed to rebuild this. I had a little bug. Sorry, let's go to the next. Right, so it's just gonna, the idea behind this is that it will just walk you through all the major component elements on the page. So that if you're, if you want to demonstrate something in class and you don't want to be scrolling back and forth, you can go into this presenter mode and it will automatically just show you all of the runestone activities. So that's one thing that's unique to being an instructor, is you'll have that drop down where your students won't. The other thing is, as an instructor, if you're going through an example in class and you've done something and you want to share that out to all of your students, so this is really important and you want them to have that, you can click on the share code button and it'll say, you're about to share this bit of code with all your students. Are you sure you want to continue? If you say yes, then it'll add this version of the code to the timeline for all of your students. And all they need to do is refresh the page and load their history, and they will see that the last one executed came from you, and it'll have a comment at the top that says that it was shared by you as the instructor. So that's a nice way if you're trying to help students or scaffold them out on a project or something. You can be doing that interactively and talking about it in class, and then just click the share code button and they all instantly have that shared code. The other unique instructor thing that you will see, not in this Foundations of Python programming book just yet, but it's in a bunch of places in the How to Think Like a Data Scientist book, is you'll see a similar, same color blue button that says Show IG. So that stands for Show Instructor Guide. And so we've been working on adding more instructor guide information to right into the textbook in a way that only instructors can see. So that's another one of the reasons why I'm trying to add some additional features to the registration process, so that I can actually verify that people are, when they claim to be an instructor, they actually are an instructor, so that I can feel good about giving access to some of this instructor material, but embed it right in the textbook where it's easy for you to find. It's right there in the moment. And so that's a goal for the future.
So we're at 4 o'clock and I have another call.
All right, so I can close down the meeting, Barb. You don't have to.
Okay.
You don't have to do that.
That's fine. I will leave and let you guys finish. I've written down a bunch of suggestions for you that I'll email you, Brad.
Okay. Yep. And just as long as I'm seeing the box here, I'm going to show you. So this is the pair programming feature. And if you check this, right, first it pops up and tells you that you should only be doing this with the consent